Breaking news now, the Department of Justice responding to President Trump's decision to declassify documents and texts related to the Mueller witch hunt, saying, quote, when the president issues such an order, it triggers a declassification review process that is conducted by various agencies within the intelligence community in conjunction with the White House counsel to seek to ensure the safety of America's national security interests. The Department and the Federal Bureau of Investigation are already working with the Director of National Intelligence to comply with the president's order. What does that sound like to you? Well, me too. Let's find out what Chris Farrell says. Joining us now, the Director of Investigations for Judicial Watch. Chris, great to have you here. Your reaction to the statement from the Department of Justice, a missive, it seemed to me, from the heart of the deep state.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very sort of perfunctory bureaucratic response. But look, for more than a year, we've been suing to get these very same records. They've all been processed under the Freedom of Information Act. They've been processed under federal court order. So this notion that they have to go back and start all over or look at it again or review it, it's another false and misleading statement by the Justice Department and the FBI. They already have all the documents compiled. They've already been reviewed because of our litigation. They simply need to release them. They're going to slow walk it. They're going to foot drag because it's not in their interests to reveal the incredible level of corruption in both the DOJ and the FBI.
Robert Mueller is sitting on top of right now.
Yeah.
Over 2 years of investigation by both the FBI and his special counsel, some 17 angry Democrats, as the president refers to his staff.
Yep.
They've been going, they have no evidence of collusion. They're beyond their charter in everything they've done. They have prosecuted, but they have prosecuted nothing under the rubric of the scope memo, whether you're referring to the one in August or the one in May. It is a preposterous, just to me, nauseating effort to thwart both justice and the values of this country.
Correct. And also, remember, Rosenstein signed one of those warrant renewals contemporaneous with the appointment of the special counsel. So this is a wonderful opportunity, once all that information is released, for the president to say, Mr. Rosenstein, you no longer enjoy my trust and confidence. You're dismissed. And if Mr. Wray drags his feet as well, there's another opportunity. Rosenstein needs to go. This is the perfect opportunity, given the context and given the amount of information that's going to be revealed, that he is actively suppressing this criminal conspiracy. Now is the time for Mr. Rosenstein to be fired, and I think that this documentation, when released, will only confirm and compound that.
I know that you have expressed your view on their slow walking, whether at the Department of Justice, the FBI, or the DNI, the intelligence community. So I'm asking you more of a political question now, and that is to assess whether that slow walking will mean that we see documents in a week, whether we see them in a month, or will we, God forbid, see them after the election sometime, because that looks like what this is a preface to, this statement from the Department of Justice.
Right. Well, the deep state political operatives will drag their feet to kick it past the election. But I would urge and compel the leadership in those organizations, those agencies, as well as President Trump, that time is of the essence. They've already processed all these records. They can release them, all of them, within a week if they wanted to. And that's the key. There's got to be this sense of urgency, this compulsion to do it now, not the way the deep state wants to do it. They're all available, and they can be released in a week.
I want to interrupt you for just a second, because we're out of time. I want one question for you to address, if you would, and that's a text, another text that's been revealed between Strzok and Page, and this one from Strzok saying this: we need to open the case. This is on May 9th, 2017. We need to open the case. If we've got this full screen, please put it up, okay? I'm going to wait for you to get that up. Have you got it? We need to open the case we've been waiting on now while Andy is acting, referring to Andrew McCabe. Page responds, we need to lock in, redacted, in a formal, chargeable way soon. Effectively acknowledging there's no evidence, they need some sort of contrivance, it seems. Your judgment, your interpretation of that exchange.
Mine matches yours. It's a pretext. They know that Andy McCabe would essentially conspire with them, and since he was the acting, he could sign off on it. And this is another deliberate targeting. This is the incredible abuse of power, targeting President Trump personally and all those around him. And this is the greatest outrage and abuse of authority at the FBI the country's ever seen.
Chris Farrell, Judicial Watch. Thanks for being with us, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou.
Joining us tonight is Jason Chaffetz, former Republican congressman from the great state of Utah, Fox Business contributor, and author. Let me see that book. Let me see that book. The book is The Deep State, How an Army of Bureaucrats Protected Barack Obama and is Working to Destroy the Trump Agenda. It's available for purchase tomorrow. We recommend it to you highly, and so highly, in fact, that we would suggest you pre-order it tonight to get a jump on all those other folks who will be coming to the party. Congratulations, first of all.
Appreciate it.
And great to have you here. Let's start with first these FISA documents. The president, this is historic. He has kept his promise, openness, transparency, and declassifying those documents. What's your reaction?
Now, hats off to the president for doing this. You've had the Intelligence Committee, the Oversight Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, members that have looked at this stuff, wanting and pushing for openness and transparency, something that Adam Schiff and the Democrats don't want to have happen. But it's going to illuminate what was happening at the upper echelons at the Department of Justice. And they never thought that was going to happen because they all thought that Hillary Clinton was to become the president. But now with President Trump, it's going to illuminate what was really going on. And that's why oversight is so imperative.
20 pages. This is oversight instituted by the president himself. It's too important oversight to leave to the Congress, obviously, and the Senate, because they have done a terrible job. There are exceptions to it, and I don't mean Devin Nunes and his committee has done a great job. But for the most part, without this president, without the OIG at Justice, we would know very little.
No, and that's why it's important, because those members who maybe have seen this information can't talk about it publicly. By declassifying it, putting it out there for the world to see, remember, these are cases that are closed, that are old. That's why it's so important to look at and look over the shoulder of the upper echelon of the Department of Justice, because there was a lot of nefarious activity going on.
And we know most of it. We know the people who were involved. We've named them. The president names them in ordering release, those texts, unredacted. I want your judgment, because this is a question in the minds of every Republican in the country. Mm-hmm. Will these documents, will these texts be enough to alter the outcome of the trajectory the midterm elections appear to be on?
I don't know that it necessarily pushes it over the edge, but I do think American people, those that are legitimately looking at this election, do you want to do what James Comey and the Democrats want? Remember, Comey's out there advocating elect Democrats because this investigation then dries up. That's right. And what you want to see is Ratcliffe and the people in Devin Nunes continue on with this investigation, root it out, fix the problem, because we have to entrust the FBI, but we can't right now until this gets turned around. I don't know when it's going to be turned around.
I want to tell you, we had a remark from Chuck Schumer today saying that the reason that the FBI needs to be investigating the Kavanaugh accusations, is because the FBI is truth seekers, acting as if there was no question about their integrity, when it's the leadership of the FBI and Department of Justice are nothing but a toxic cesspool of political corruption.
And that's why we got to clean it up. My grandfather was a career FBI agent. I grew up in an atmosphere in a household that just believed in the integrity there. But when you look at Ohr and Strzok and Page and McCabe, and you just start going down the list, this is literally the senior-most leadership. And they've either been fired, they've either had to be dismissed, and there was a reason why.
And there's a reason why, again, in addition to everything that you mentioned, that the Republican Party needs to stand up on November 6th, partly because Biden and Holder, by the way, the only guy talking about corruption,
That's
he's
right.
the only cabinet officer in history, cabinet secretary in history to be cited for contempt by the Congress of the United States. I mean, isn't that a beautiful thing? but there's a president who needs all of the support he can get in the House of Representatives as well. Jason Chaffetz, great to have you with us. Also,
thanks, Lou.
America's a better place for having a new book, The Deep State. We recommend it.
In a move that has surprised many, the White House announced President Trump is ordering the Director of the National Intelligence and the Department of Justice to declassify a number of materials related to Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into the Trump campaign. The order includes, amongst many things, pages from a FISA application against former Trump aide Carter Page, interviews with former DOJ official Bruce Ohr, and text messages from former FBI Director James Comey and former FBI agent Peter Strzok and FBI lawyer Lisa Page. For more, we turn to former U.S. diplomat Jim Jotros. Jim, thank you for coming on the last minute because we were kind of expecting this. Why now?
Well, why did it take so long? It's not so much why now. Why didn't he do this 2 months ago, 3 months ago? I'm glad he's finally done it. It's, you know, clearly the Justice Department has been dragging its feet on this. We still have to answer the question, when will these documents come out? Will the White House bite the bullet and release themselves? I saw one report maybe as early as tonight. Or are they going to let the same people that have been slow walking this all these months do the release when they get around to it? And that's what I'm concerned about.
Obviously, the White House and President Trump have reviewed these documents, so they see that they put them in a favorable light. But why do you think that President Trump, what is he ultimately hoping to gain from releasing these documents?
I think what he's hoping to gain, and what I think the documents will show, is just how baseless the entire spying on his campaign was, what really amounts to a criminal conspiracy within certain elements of our government to try to bring down his administration. And look, I think we're going to see some of his supporters on a certain other network, the name of which I won't mention, that named after a small red carnivore, that will try to say, well, this shows how the Russians are behind this, and try to flip the narrative, Russian collusion with the Democrats. I think what will be interesting is we see the details with Christopher Steele, MI6, GCHQ, and what the British fingerprints on all this, because at the beginning they have been at the root of this whole Steele dossier and so forth, trying to bring this president down.
But those who have been following the story and don't necessarily believe there's Russian collusion that happened between the Trump campaign, are you expecting any surprises to be in these documents, or it kind of just confirms what we've been saying for the past few months?
I think it's more the question of confirmation than surprises, and what are some of the details as to what lengths these people were willing to go to subvert the constitutional process and to try to bring down a constitutionally elected president. I mean, this is criminality.
Absolutely. Well, do you feel Trump has legitimate grievance with the FBI and our national security right now when he releases these documents?
Absolutely. I think quite to the contrary, that he's waited far too long to do this. And, of course, he's going to be attacked now by the Democrats, already starting sources and methods compromising national security. This is all bunk. This is all an effort to keep a lid on what I think is a criminal conspiracy.
Well, another part of this is this week, Nellie Ohr is due to testify before Congress this week about her work with Fusion GPS, you know, the research firm that was behind the Steele dossier. Trump has sought to discredit the firm by claiming that it had tied to the Democrats as well as some establishment Republicans. Is this unrelated, do you think, to the declassification of what's happening today, or do you think they come kind of hand in hand?
I think they do come hand in hand. I don't know whether, again, back to the question of timing, whether it was triggered by that upcoming testimony. But if so, I think it works out very nicely, because I think it puts the supporters and congressmen in a much better position to really grill her.
Well, it definitely makes us want to watch next week even more. Make it more interesting. Grab your popcorn. It's just beginning.
Thank you.
The top Democrat in the House, Nancy Pelosi, is responding tonight, saying, quote, the president is potentially risking the lives of our patriots by compromising sources and methods. Also, he can advance falsehoods and false narratives that distract from the truth of the Trump-Russia scandal. So reaction now from the other side. Let's bring in Republican Congressman from New York, Peter King, who sits on the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, great to have you with us. I'll start by asking you to respond to your colleague, Nancy Pelosi.
She's entirely wrong. There's going to be no sources or methods being disclosed here. What will be disclosed is the American people will find out that there was no basis for these FISA warrants, that the important information was kept from the court. There's going to be a disproportionate influence of the dossier. Also, you're going to find out that people like Carter Page, a based investigation of him, when no one would seriously think that he was any kind of an agent of the Russians. Basically, you have a counterterrorism tool. A tool that's used to protect us from terrorists is instead being used, that's the FISA court, is being used to spy on an American campaign, a presidential campaign, unprecedented in our history.
I want to recap for folks so they know exactly what the president has asked for tonight: declassified or release these things. Portions of the Carter Page FISA application, FBI reports of the interviews that they had with Bruce Ohr, FBI reports of interviews in connection with Page FISA applications, and also the president says they want all these unredacted text release regarding the Russia investigation. He named several people: Comey, McCabe, Page, Strzok, Ohr. What do you think we will learn from these things?
I think you're going to find out that if there was any collusion, it was involving the FBI and Fusion GPS. The fact is that there was an attempt to bring down President Trump before he was elected during his campaign and also afterwards. Now, whether or not this was concerted, whether it was intentional collusion, or there's just a meeting of the minds of people who wanted to stop Donald Trump. But the reality is you're going to see that there's such a commingling here. You have Bruce Ohr, you have his wife, who's Bruce Ohr is in the Justice Department. His wife is with Fusion GPS, involved with Christopher Steele. I mean, all of this going on. There's such a contradiction here, and it goes against the whole spirit of the FISA court. I mean, FISA court is almost sacred in that the government has an obligation to disclose as much as they can to the FISA court. There's no one else in the court who opposes this. So they have an obligation, when they're laying out their case, asking for this unprecedented power, this really unique power to be, in effect, spying on Americans, that they have to lay everything out for the court. They did not do that here. I can't go into all the details, but when these FISA applications are made public, as I've seen them, all the American people are going to see is that important facts were not disclosed to the court, including the basis of the dossier, how unsubstantiated it was, how unreliable Christopher Steele turned out to be. All of this we brought out, and how anyone who can base an investigation around Carter Page to say that he was some kind of a Russian agent is, again, a total distortion of the FISA court.
More breaking news tonight. President Trump has ordered the immediate declassification and public release of several key pages from that FISA application the FBI used in order to get a warrant to spy on Carter Page. According to a statement from the White House, the release will also include, quote, all text messages relating to the Russia investigation without redaction of James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and Bruce Ohr. Holy underwear. It is unclear when the public will see these documents, but Democrats like Adam Schiff are already crying foul, while Republicans like Mark Meadows are applauding the president for shining a light on what they claim is bias within the DOJ and FBI. So who's the big winner and who's going to lose from this presidential document dump? Former Trump campaign manager and Great America PAC senior strategist, he's also the author of the book Let Trump Be Trump, Corey Lewandowski is here to respond. What do you make of this release, Corey?
Well, this is a great day for the public in the era of transparency. The president has done something which Congress has been calling on him to do for a long time, releasing and declassifying pages 10 through 12 of that FISA application, 17 through 34, but also the FBI's 302s to Bruce Ohr, who we know met with the FBI on at least a dozen occasions to discuss his wife's relationship at Fusion GPS and how the false dossier got put together. This is going to be very important. The question now is, does the swamp take over? The president has asked for the immediate declassification of this. When will Rod Rosenstein and DNI Coates make this information available to the public in an unredacted manner?
Well, I mean, that's what they're promising. So some of these texts, James Comey, that's going to be boring. Andrew McCabe, that could be kind of interesting considering his wife's political background. But Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, I don't know if I want to read those texts.
Well, you do want to read them because, look, they're so salacious, they're so outrageous. You know, you can write a great book on these guys afterwards. But here's really what it comes down to. We know that they went after Donald Trump when there was nothing to go after. We know that Lisa Page and Peter Strzok had their own agenda. We know that these were individuals who were interviewing.
They had an axe to grind, and the foundation for launching the investigation, by her own admission before Congress, was pretty flimsy. I mean, it doesn't sound like reason enough, and Strzok admitted that in some of the texts to his then paramour. You know, my question for the president, why has this taken so long? Is he worried about what he considers to be the deep state fallout from a vengeful FBI and DOJ?
No, I don't think so. I think this president's ready to put a giant spotlight on everything that's gone wrong in the DOJ and the FBI and bring those individuals who weren't following the protocols to light. And look, we know Peter Strzok was involved in having a conversation with Mike Flynn. We know that for sure. We know he had an axe to grind. We know that he's the one who went after Mike Flynn. And what we are finally going to find now is, did anybody who signed that FISA application to the judge, did they disclose the information, which was that this false dossier was paid for by the Clinton campaign? I have a feeling they didn't, and we want to know when they signed it. What else did they not be truthful to that FISA judge on? And I hope they're accountable for that.
I mean, I would like to see many more FISA applications. I would like to know how, in fact, this process works. And after an application is approved and the FBI and other surveillance agencies are given access and given the ability to spy, even with warrants, what kind of oversight do these judges provide after the fact? That's what I want to know. I also want to know is, are Dan Coates and Christopher Wray and that one lady at the CIA, are they all still engaging in the kind of illegal spying that Edward Snowden brought to light in 2013?
Well, Kennedy, it's a great question, but you have to remember the first time the FBI went to get this FISA application, they were denied because they basically said, we're going to spy on American citizens on U.S. soil. 98% of the FISA applications that get submitted are approved. The first time Rosenstein and his cohorts there applied for it, they were denied. Sally Yates, those individuals, because it was so blatantly political and so blatantly an abuse of the Fourth Amendment. So they went back, they modified it, and now look what they've done to this guy, Carter Page. You know, they went after him. They were trying to spying on him on U.S. soil as an American citizen is a clear violation. Where's the accountability?
Well, they know the most about him. Supposedly, he was engaging in the most egregious activity with the Russians. So why hasn't Carter Page been indicted?
Well, because he didn't commit any crimes. That's the bottom line. Look, if you are the victim of a crime, that doesn't make you a criminal. And what they were trying to do is to monitor someone who was potentially going to be the victim of a crime. But he didn't commit any crimes, because if he did, he would have been indicted and the first application would have been approved.
If you could fire anyone who's a part of this who hasn't been fired yet, who would it be?
Oh, there's so many. If I only get one choice, Rod Rosenstein.
Ooh, Corey Lewandowski, thanks so much.
Thank you.